Greetings and salutations, friends. So, last Saturday was May 1st, and one of the newsworthy things that happened on that day was demonstrations against the ongoing coronavirus restrictions. And these demonstrations happened everywhere, like France, the UK, Canada, and also in Norway, which is where I happen to live. And so I went and I attended my local demonstration, mostly to document, partly because I was curious, partly because I guess it was free content. And I made some observations that I thought that I would like to share. The first thing I observed was the size of the crowd. It was quite small. I think at most 200 people showed up. So really compared to the demonstrations that are happening in other countries, this was nothing. This was even nothing when you compare it to the BLM protest that happened in Oslo last year. I mean, the difference between the sizes and the crowds that showed up, I think it's orders of magnitude different. And, well, I don't really know how to feel about that, but it's an interesting observation nonetheless. And so it seems to me to be the case that most people in Norway are still in favor of the lockdowns. And I started thinking why that might be the case. And one of the reasons is, as with most other countries, Norwegians love to compare themselves to their neighbors. And in this case, the relevant neighbor to compare oneself to is Sweden. Now, Sweden has had a very different strategy from Norway. Sweden has been more hands off. We recommend you do such and such, but we're not really going to enforce it. Whilst Norway has been the complete total opposite. And we just got out of quite a long period of time where it was illegal for you to have more than two guests over at a time. And so really quite different strategies, but Norway has been doing quite well when you measure it with almost any relevant corona-related metric that you can think of, compared to Sweden, which has not been doing as well. And so this gives the people the impression that, oh, hey, the lockdowns must work because we're doing really well and Sweden's doing really shitty, right? And another reason that I think that the lockdowns seem to still be popular in Norway is because I guess what you might call the flavor of Norwegian society. It's relatively homogenous. There's usually a high degree of conformity enforced through social enforcement. There's a high degree of trust in the government. And so I think all of these factors, when taken together, mean that people generally think that the government is doing a good job. And I guess that's why we're in a situation where most people don't feel the need to protest against the ongoing restrictions. And really, to get a sense of it, the way that the restrictions are being sold in Norway to the public is as a dugnad. I'm not really sure what that word is in English, but it's basically when a local community comes together to take care of all the stuff that's not one person's responsibility, but that's kind of impacts the collective still, like cutting grass that doesn't belong to any specific person's lawn, picking up trash, putting fresh layers of paint on stuff, just general maintenance, but everybody participates in the dugnad, and it's voluntary. That's the thing. And these lockdowns have been sold as a national dugnad where everybody has to participate. So it's very focused on the community. And yeah, that's really how it's been sold. So the next thing that I found interesting regarding the demonstrations in Norway is the media reception. There have been previous demonstrations. The ones that happened last Saturday haven't really been getting all that much attention, but the thing that I find interesting is that it seems like the media is trying their hardest to find the most unsavory characters that they can find that are associated with the protests, and then angle it as if everybody at the demonstration has those same unsavory views. So there are people who are like Holocaust deniers and people who are associated with far-right extremism and all that stuff. Not actually necessarily participating, at least in this last protest, just showing up there. And then those are the people that the media try to use as the face of this group. And I think that's rather unfortunate because, I mean, for multiple reasons. But one, it seems the media has an economic incentive now to really divide people as much as possible, really to make them as polarized as they can. And why? It's probably because sensationalism is what sells clicks. You're not going to sell anything by, oh, here, a couple hundred people showed up, they don't like the protests, yada yada. No, what sells is, oh, look at all of these dangerous far-right people and all of these, anti-vaxxers, and they're ridiculous. Let's take a look and laugh at them. I'm sure glad I'm not associated with these fools, ha ha ha. And this brings me to the next point, which I actually had a conversation with a girl at this place, which means that it was actually the first time I've talked to a stranger at a public event for over a year. And that was quite interesting. But what she noted, what her greatest concern with all of these goings on is, is the polarization that I mentioned earlier. And I'd have to agree with her because I think when you look at the way that the media coverage translates to people, what people's sentiment is on social media, it's rather unpleasant. I've collected some Facebook posts that are associated with the people who demonstrated in some way, either from news articles or people commenting on the actual event or whatnot, and a lot of it is rather unpleasant. I mean, you have people hoping that the people who participate get corona and so that they can then deny them medical care. You have people calling them, idiots, conspiracy theorists, not everybody should be allowed to have their opinion heard, yada yada. And I really had a point that I wanted to address, or that I wanted to address that people who share this sentiment. Now, I don't imagine that anybody who posts anything like this, or anybody who actually agrees with these people, is ever going to watch this video, but if I was talking to somebody who did have that sentiment, this is what I would like to tell them. The people who showed up, it was quite a diverse crowd. You had some hippie trippy people, and yeah, you had some, people with fringe beliefs, some legitimate anti-vaxxers, but for the most part, you had people who had concerns that I think, if you took the time to examine them, you would find that they were remarkably similar to the concerns that you might have. There were people who were worried about what kind of society we're creating for their kids. I mean, actually legitimately concerned for the future of their kids. I mean, what kind of an impact is it having on the current generation to have the norm be that everybody's face is covered at all times? We don't really know that. It's hard to measure, hard to quantify, hard to predict. Another thing that they're worried about is the fact that Norway is currently discussing implementing vaccine passports. And this is unprecedented in, modern free societies. It's never been the case that you had to show proof of having done something in order to be given permission to participate in the normal everyday goings on of everyday life. Sometimes you have to show ID, of course, if you want to, get into a bar or buy alcohol, but that's different. That's not the same. The passports are basically a way to pressure people into taking the vaccine by conditioning their freedom on accepting an experimental medical procedure. I don't think that sets a good precedent for people alive today, but I certainly don't think that that's something that, if accepted, is going to make the society a safer place for our kids. You might disagree, but I don't think that that's an unreasonable concern to have. And so I think it's quite unfortunate that this group is demonized in the way that they are, because a lot of them have actual legitimate grievances, worries for their kids, or it's people who have lost their jobs. It's people who have been denied social contact for quite a long time. And I don't think it's okay. I don't think it's okay to just dismiss people who have those concerns as far right, crazy people. And I think that if you were to smear them in that manner, then all of the things that have made Norwegians so united around locking down, those things are going to erode. They require trust in not just the government, but the rest of the people as well. And if you have this group who, like I said, have legitimate grievances, and you just demonize them, you just laugh at all of the problems that they put forward, and you completely ignore them, completely sideline them, completely marginalize them, then that is going to damage the social fabric that has allowed Norway to seemingly do as well as it has. And so, if you're really concerned about people getting sick, if you're really concerned about getting through this pandemic, let's say with as little friction as possible, I think it would behoove you to actually talk to these people, to listen to them, and to take their concerns seriously. And that's all I've got for today. Peace out.